All right. Welcome to the Unnamed Cybersecurity Podcast / video podcast, whatever we want to call this today. I'm Chris Burns. We have Bob, we have Carl, and we have two guests today.
Yeah.
Guests, cool.
Yeah. From Evo Security. What do you guys do? Quick overview.
Yeah, we're a identity and access management provider for MSPs. Essentially, basically protecting the keys to the kingdom. When it comes to MFA, SSO, privileged access management. Basically just want to be that all-encompassing kind of platform for MSPs where they can just come to us, install, get their users under one roof, and start getting them protected and authenticated. So that's really the whole goal here.
For people that aren't MSPs and they may not understand what identity and privileged account management are, why is that important in today's landscape?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll kind of bounce back and forth here with Dan, but from my perspective, MSPs have an ever-growing stack. Chris, I've been talking with you for years. There's new vendors popping up here and there all the time. What do I need? What don't I need? What can I consolidate? So what we're seeing a lot of is, okay, they have the greatest endpoint protection. They have application whitelisting. They have email protection, all these great things that every MSP should have. But what happens when someone just has the keys to your front door, per se, and just walks right through? So that's what we're solving. There's a lot of really big enterprise companies that do this, but we want to be more MSP friendly, and then give you the tools to help your end users in a streamlined way. That's the goal that I try to bring to every single partner that we bring on. Dan, I don't know if you want to add something there.
Yeah, happy to add a little. Jeff, you definitely hit a good amount of MSP, but truly the tools are built for SMB, right? That's the end target market where this is being deployed. We go to market through service providers just because they typically help deploy complex solutions for the SMB. But at heart, our product is to fill the gap of products that you're logging into, right? A lot of small to medium businesses, they'll bring in a project management tool, a support tool, QuickBooks. But the problem is my identity doesn't align between them, right? It's not a single password. It's not a single journey. So you get concerns of what happens if Dan was breached today and Dan uses the same password everywhere and Dan doesn't have MFA on, right? You're creating gaps in your security posture. And one of the big targets for us that we see is a lot of times it's privileged accounts, it's administrative accounts. Unfortunately, it's the same password on the firewall, the switch, your access points. So for us, it's locking that down, controlling who can actually see those privileged accounts, rotating them frequently, right? That way, if you are breached, and I think in cybersecurity, that's probably the hardest question to answer is, are you actually breached today? For us, it's trying to prevent that by rotating passwords constantly. I mean, they'll change every hour in the background, and then your login will just seamlessly bring you into wherever your privileges align.
So let's slow down for a second. So you're saying that people reuse passwords all the time across multiple websites and multiple tools? That's what you're saying?
We see it frequently. Yeah, to the point where providers
have heard of this stuff.
we see it where that password is even stored in documentation tools, right? It's the same password and it's written in plain text and 10 people know where it is and copy and paste it to log in.
I specifically love when it says passwords.txt. That's my favorite.
Yeah, or passwords.exle or what?
XLS?
XLS,
yeah. Or XLSX?
First day with a tongue today.
We actually ran across somebody last week who was the IT manager that had 200 plus passwords in his spreadsheet for his Office 365 users, and he doesn't let them change their passwords.
Mm-hmm. We've seen it all. And what I try to do is get, in my shoes, I'm talking to the MSP all the time, but it does translate obviously to the SMB. They'll come to us and say, I have to have a solution in place because of X requirement. That's a big one right now too. So for whatever compliance needs, we deal with a lot of end users that are, medical, financial and stuff like that. And those requirements are coming down the pipe. Mm-hmm. Chris, I know that you spoke a little bit about that with me. We talk all the time, but you told me a little bit about that too. So we want to be the people that can check the box for you essentially, but we want to give you the tool to manage all of your SMBs under, one multi-tenant dashboard, essentially. Make sure that they're enrolled in the MFA. Make sure your techs are not copying, pasting passwords out of, X company, right? I'm not going to name any vendors, but it's there's tools made for certain things. We want to change that behavior of copy, pasting, sharing admin credentials. I have MSPs that tell me that, oh yeah, we just share the MFA codes with each other. And I'm just like, all right, well, do you want to change that behavier or?
To be fair, we all use Pastebin for our password storage. So it's a bad joke, but
yeah, I got it.
But it is a problem. So, we see it all the time when we do like risk assessments or something on maybe a company that has like an MSP or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We are finding passwords for domain admin accounts. We're able to relay those passwords. They're not being rotated. So I think let's talk about the dangers let's talk about a privileged account. Let's say the domain administrator account that a lot of these small businesses have because they have a server on site. What is the dangers of somebody using that on all of their workstations and not rotating it and not protecting it?
Yeah, I think, the first one that kind of comes up and is probably the most common is, unfortunately, it's employee who was terminated who is upset at the organization, right? They know where all the assets are. They know how to wreak havoc. And a lot of times when I'm talking to SMBs, there's this level of comfort, right? We're a small organization. We're a family, right? I trust Dan and Jeff. They do it all. They built it all. But unfortunately, when there's termination, right, there's ill will, that tends to be the first threat actor that's just going to delete a database, interact with the customer. And then there's brand damage that happens for that SMB. At a larger scale, we're in the SMB space. Most cyber attacks are kind of spray and pray, right? It's the phishing attempt that managed to get Jeff to click it because Jeff clicks everything. And, in that journey, it's where are they moving laterally, right? Where are they going in the kill chain? And, what's the goal for this organization, right? Like, where's their product? Is it their database? Is it records? Is it now ransomware, right? The end target is, right, how do I turn this infrastructure and this credential into revenue, which generally is probably going to be, where's the data live and how do I encrypt it to get ransom out of you?
It's funny that you mention employees that are either terminating or exiting. I had a statistic that came out that about 50% of all exiting employees will take trade secrets out of the company. And part of the problem is when you ask most business owners, do they have trade secrets? They're not even aware that they do, which is their client lists, the way that they deliver, their sales force, their whole management, their employee, their compensation levels. All those are
personal Dropbox account, dude.
What's that?
It's that personal Dropbox account that got sitting there. They moved everything over. So.
Or that email forward from their accounts going out.
Well, before, not too long ago, it was you can only log on to your systems. Some companies are like this, but you can only log on your systems from your work laptop. Mm-hmm. Now it's like I can log into 365 on any computer I want or whatever. So the behavior there is, okay, we have to plan out this, God forbid, right, termination of one of your employees or whatever, right? But we have to plan that out, make sure that they can't touch their laptop, make sure that they don't take anything home with them. And now that's not the case anymore. We're all remote. I've been remote for the last 8 years. So, it's one of those things where, I have a laptop, but if Evo shuts my account off right now, I can't access anything. I'm totally off.
And you bring up a good point. I think the pandemic kind of made it worse in a way because a lot of people didn't provide equipment to their employees. They just sent them home and said, hey, we're in the cloud. We're safe. Right. Not thinking about all the challenges with managing accounts at that level. So if you give somebody access to like 10 different applications, it's 10 different passwords. How are you making sure that they're actually following through with policy? Right? Maybe they are using the same password on all 10, which can kind of cause a problem. Mm-hmm. How do you guys feel about the SSO tax? And for anybody out there, it's single sign-on, and a lot of companies charge a stupid amount more just to enable it when they're not even doing the authentication. So it's
I
terrible.
experienced this firsthand, actually. We use a CRM, obviously, in our sales org. And we wanted, like, we were just like, okay, cool. Like, we already had 2-factor on and everything, but I was like, oh, there's SSO in the platform. And I went to click it, and it's like, call your sales guy. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I have to call my sales guy? So we had to upgrade a part of the CRM anyways, for, some onboarding stuff, but we got it there, but it works great. But yeah, the SSO tax, I think that's going to go away, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a value add, but it's more of like a necessity now. I think you're going to start seeing that just be included maybe in the pricing or something.
I had a hard time even getting MFA enabled on my payroll platform. Forget about SSO, but MFA.
Yeah.
Well, and think about the employee onboarding, offboarding process. Let's talk about that with SSO and why that's so powerful. Yeah. So if we use a platform like Evo, or if we use some other platform that does something similar, you can provision out those like accounts and all your cloud applications from a single logon.
Yep.
From a single provider. Think about that from your business. Like, how important is that to clean up your onboarding process and clean up your offboarding process? To, like Jeff said, if you disable that one account, guess what? They lose access to everything that they had access to.
And you don't have to worry. Like, that's the main part of the elevated access side of Evo is, yeah, okay, it's great. Like, we're having better security practices, but it's more than that. It's time saving. Like, how much time we don't have the metrics yet, right? But like, how much time can we save on each login to a machine from a tech's perspective? Like, if the tech takes 2 minutes on each login, they're logging the 500 computers a week, that adds up. And if we can cut that down to 30 seconds, 20 seconds, in some cases, Dan, even shorter, you're just picking up your phone and approving yourself and facial recognition or whatever. But yeah, there's more value than just security being the bigger part of it.
So what advice would you guys give companies, not just MSPs, but companies in general, if you're starting to look at how you want to develop your identity management strategy, what would be the top 1 or 2 things that you would tell them to look at first?
I think your starting point is your inventory. I think a lot of organizations don't actually understand how broad their environment is. What's that total scope? Then from there, again, to me, it's kind of like the crawl, walk, run. Get the inventory, figure out how to turn MFA on everything, right? Like, let's just make sure everyone is who they say they are when they first log in. And then from there, we should be trying to target SSO, right? Getting you to a point where we have that full inventory. We know who every single user is. We're going to verify them at every login. And guess what? Dan's going to log in with one set of credentials everywhere. When it's Dan's last day, it's one click, he's done. He doesn't have access to everything, right? I think that type of mentality, kind of that crawl, walk, run, will get you where you need to go.
I appreciate how you use your name and all your examples.
Yeah.
Or me. He uses me a lot too.
I would have said Jeff, honestly, if I was you the entire time. I would have been like, Jeff on Jeff's last day. No.
He's trying to tell me something here.
But Carl, what are you doing for identity management?
What am I doing? No.
Yeah.
Well,
don't spill your trade secrets. I'm not asking that. But
we've been putting MFA and SSO in where applicable. We use password managers. This seems like, because again, the SSO tax, sometimes we have not, but anything that's critical at least has to have MFA on it at the very least. SSO is far better, but at least, so, this is the first time I've heard of this product, as far as what it can do, and it sounds very promising because one of the things that, I don't want to we did have a problem with an SSO product called Aki that came out and it has been in the news. So I guess maybe take a minute or two to talk about what you saw, what you learned from that, as far as issues that, and how you're looking to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, for us, we obviously take security insanely seriously in our organization. At current stage, we're SOC 2 Type 1. We are in our process of going through our Type 2. So with that, ton of policies and procedures in place. We're regularly built with vulnerability tests. And, one thing about us too, to the level of, I'll say, the how we take security and that scrutiny internally. We've built our product kind of on an API first mentality, but we've yet to build one external API access out, just because of all the risks that are associated with it, right?
Okay.
So, our mentality has always been security first. Some of our processes, even when you go in the portal, you'll feel like, hey, there's 1 or 2 extra clicks. Why am I doing that? And it's to ensure that you fully understand what you're committing to, right? What a token is, what a direction for your URL for SAML is, right? So I think you would feel that when you're in the product. But yeah, that's where I would tell you, if we could ever do a CTO spill all, he's the guy who can kind of give you the under the scenes of how secure we are.
Well, I mean, it's not like you have keys to the kingdom when you have that level of access, right? I mean,
Yep.
I want to make sure that everybody stays safe. Bob, are you doing something specific for identity management?
We're mostly right now. We're mostly using the Microsoft Azure environment. We have, for and SSOing in through there, pushing it down to the local machines. But we definitely have to expand that. But we also want to make sure we're doing it securely and safely, because we don't want to have another Okta incident on our hands.
Yeah.
So for us, we use Microsoft. I mean, if you go look at our domain, you'll figure that out real quick. One of the big pushes for us with customers is to really get to a single identity, if possible. But unfortunately, SSO text kind of nukes that a little bit. But one of the other things we do is for privileged account management internally, nobody's an admin, right? We don't want anybody running as administrator. Nobody should be running as administrator. We use a different tool right now that allows us to escalate privileges for installing applications and things like that. Jeff and I have talked about this. It is something that is an Evo. There's an option for that too, and it allows you to let people not run as admin. So if something bad is going to run, it's going to be through an approval process, which hopefully you have a pretty good documented process about approval, that you're not just blindly approving things, because you don't want to put something in place like this and just go, hey, like we gave this to a customer of ours in a co-managed situation, and this person approved Steam and PokerStars. And we're like, what are you doing? First of all, Steam is for games and PokerStars is
system.
Yeah.
You're
It's like,
allow that in. There's no.
Yeah. So it was just like, oh, you're banned. I want to ban him now. I haven't told Matt. So if he watches, this is gonna be a pretty funny, awkward conversation, by the way.
It's like putting a padlock up. It's like putting a padlock on a fence.
Games too.
Yeah. So let's finish this up with, what do you see the future in let's say the next 2 years for a small business that's struggling with identity and struggling with privilege management? Where do you think they're going to be in like 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it this way. So Dan and I both started at a company called Datto, little company, probably never heard of them. But we were on that cusp of like tape backups to virtualization. Like we saw that like transition. And at first it was hard, right? MSPs weren't really MSPs back then, I guess, like the way they are now, I would say. It just, things evolved, right? But we saw that like, hey, this is a great product. You should look at it. And they're like, well, I have tapes. What am I going to do with all these tapes? And what am I going to do with this? And virtualization in the cloud, what is that? Like, so Dan and I were there when it was really hard to sell. And then when it was, flying off the shelves, right? We're on that cusp again with identity and access management. And like, I think that 1 to 2 years, the solutions, like our solution, obviously there's other competitors out there. Doesn't matter if you use Evo or if you use whatever else, it doesn't matter. As long as you're using something, you're a step ahead of the game here. But I guess my thoughts on that, and then Dan, I'll let you go here. But 1 to 2 years from now, I mean, I think it's just going to be a seamless thing. The way technology evolves now, like with your phones and biometrics and all these things, like I think it's just, hey, scan your face and whatever, type in this code and you're onboarded. I think a lot of the things we struggle with as a vendor that sells to managed service providers is we have to think of the SMB as well, because you're having to deploy this. And if it's a pain for you, it's a pain for them. So we want to eliminate that completely. We want you to trust that we're there for you and that your clients are going to have a good experience, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. So.
Yeah, my 2 cents is honestly 2 years from now, this is going to be a requirement. And of course, we can always go down this compliance route, right? But truthfully, it's more so insurance today, right? If you look at it today, we've seen the questionnaires go from, is MFA deployed to is MFA on a firewall, right? They're starting to get a little bit more specific. And now we're seeing things of, how do you have a privilege access management tool? And, we don't want to run into those traveler scenarios where, you check the MFA box, but where was it deployed? So I honestly, I think insurance is going to be the driver to force the premiums to go down, and products like this are already on the line card.
Cool.
What's funny is we talked about insurance last week, and we brought travelers up. So I don't know if you watched it, and if you didn't, shout out to you for doing a callback that you had no clue was going to happen. So
you should come back and watch last week's video.
Do we all agree that passwords need to die?
Passwords need to die. I think
as much as we can.
In 2 years, everyone's going to be chipped.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to barcode it inside my wrist. Just scan it everywhere.
Yeah, something easily photographed that you can't change. That's always good.
Well, something that we didn't talk about, and this is probably for another time, but passwordless is an option going forward. Eventually, where you can use your biometrics to log in. It's something that you have, so you won't have to have a password. It is there somewhat in Microsoft 365 if you want to use it. What about we didn't touch on passkeys, which I think are going to be the real change that has to happen.
You're starting to see it pushed out a little bit.
Yeah, and nobody wants to carry around a key, some sort of fob or some sort of like YubiKey or something like that. I mean, do you guys want to?
No, it'll be something like that on your phone.
Yeah, well, we have the option for the YubiKeys, and Dan and I run up against scenarios too where maybe it's a bank and they can't use their personal cell phone and they're not given a company phone for 2FA, right? So they have to have some sort of physical device. So I don't see that going away. I remember my dad used to work for GE and he had one of those. I never knew what it was. It was just a bunch of numbers. He had it for
RSA.
Yeah. I'm like, finally I asked him, like, what is that thing? He's like, oh, I have to type this in when, this was back in like 1995, I think. But like I have to type this in when I want to log into whatever. So I thought that was interesting, but
yeah, I don't think they're going away. I just think that for the majority of people, they're a pain. And I say that meaning if you don't have two of them and somebody loses theirs, that becomes a problem.
Yep.
So passkeys are kind of like and passkeys are kind of like the hybrid
point. Yeah, you're stopped at that point. Like the employee can't work in that environment, and I mean, I know for you, Chris, I know I keep picking on you here, but like you have all different types of clients, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to adapt to all different types of scenarios. But like, I don't know. I think like Dan kind of mentioned, it's going to be a requirement. I just don't like. I think it's just going to be like insurance form. You don't have it. Sorry. And that also brings me to my last point here. And I'm sorry for going over, but
no, you're good.
Chris, your approach to your users is, hey, this is our package. If you don't want it and you don't want to do these risk assessments or whatever, I can't take you on as a client. And I think that's most of the MSPs I talk to nowadays. I would say 80% or more. We're doing this. We're going to eat the cost for a couple months, and then we're going to re-up with our end users. That's how serious it's become. Like they can't take the risk. Like you guys can't take a hit like that. MSPs cannot take a hit like that ever. So that's what we're seeing as well. It's not so much I have to go to every client and sell this. It's like, here, you need this now. This is now your life.
All right. So in conclusion, identity management. So we get a program around how are you going to manage the identities of all your users, and then privileged account management really is managing those administrator accounts in your environment. Rotate passwords, things like that. Use a tool. You can use Evo if you work with a managed service provider. If not, there's other tools out there too. But we're not here to sell tools. We're here to talk about things that are going on. So
the processes that you would use.
So do you guys have anything else? Anybody else? Or we? No.
Yeah, I think I'm good. But like just like echoing what you just said, Chris. Like if it's not Evo, pick something else. You have to start, because you can have the best tools in place. But if someone has keys to your front door, like it doesn't matter.
I think, Jeff, going back to your point about backups and that little company called Datto, when we started to go back a few years ago when I had hair, and I mean, this is my natural color, by the way. I don't dye this, but anyway, people would say, "Why do I need to back up to the cloud? I have a USB key. I stuff in the thing," and that's kind of where we're coming in with identity right now. Is we're looking at really bubblegum solutions for enterprise problems. Duct tape and hope, and we definitely need more robust solutions out there.
Yeah, a lot of what Dan and I do and the rest of the team here at Evo is education. So yeah, we have a product and a vendor. We want you to be a partner. We want you to use us. But if it's not us, like pick somebody else. Don't keep doing what you're doing, especially if you're taking passwords off a spreadsheet. No shame, right? But I think that's those days are gone. I think we got to move on from that. Rather quickly. I just think it's going to take one hiccup, and that's it. So, but appreciate you bringing us on, Chris. And
yeah, we appreciate you being here. Hey guys, if you have any questions about identity management, privilege account management, reach out to us. Let us know if we want to bring Dan and Jeff back on, so Dan can talk about Jeff's last day when he disables his account. We can do that as well.
Watch
the whole live right now.
Yep. Wow. So on that note, after we bury Jeff because he was burying me half of the episode, you guys have a good rest of your week.
Thank you.
Chris is never vengeful.
Thanks, guys.
By the way, have a nice weekend.